I don't think Gary needs any introduction to those of us who are familiar with Gary and the kitchen at Beth Hillel Temple. He's been one of our mainstays. So Gary, take it away. You might want to unmute yourselves.
What?
Telling everybody else to mute themselves. We're not going to mute.
Yeah, not you. That's why I don't want to mute people because I.
Okay, what I'm going to be making tonight.
The speaker view for those of you. So go out of gallery view and go into speaker view.
Okay, I'm going to be making Hamantaschen tonight, so I'm going to go step by step. At the end, if anyone has any questions with maybe baking in general, just ask away. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to take my 1.5 sticks of butter and I'm going to cut it up into little chunks so that way I can get it to blend better. And I had the butter out for about 45 minutes to help soften it up. If I were using a bigger mixer, I really wouldn't have had the butter out too long because the friction of the mixer would have helped cream the butter better. But since I'm using a little household blender.
From the 70s, probably?
Yeah. So I'm going to start by creaming the butter first a little bit. And then once that gets to the stage that I need, what I'm going to do then is add some 2/3 cup of sugar to it. So
Gary, we seem to have lost your sound, so stick close to your microphone.
well, it's probably because of the mixer.
Oh, okay. Well,
Right
I didn't hear the mixer either.
With this little amount of butter, it'll probably just take a couple to 3 minutes to get it to the stage you need it, and it's almost there actually. Okay.
Yes.
Now I'm going to add my sugar. Start it slowly so it doesn't go all over the place. So the point I'm going to get to with this mixture is I really don't want to feel too much of the sugar granules. So I'm kind of waiting until they dissolve within the butter. Butter all over, you know. It's about there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the egg and vanilla. So it's 1 egg. And then 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, now I'm going to blend this until everything is well incorporated and I get it and develop a little bit of air into it. Okay, that's where we're at. Now with the flour, you want to put it in little by little because I'm sure some of you have experienced it where you put in all the flour, you hit it, and all of a sudden you got flour all everywhere. So little by little, we'll introduce the flour and at a low speed. Yeah. What I'm doing is keeping the dough from flying everywhere right now.
Do you want to use this stuff?
Yeah. Whenever I use a handheld mixer like this, I always unplug it when I'm cleaning the beater so I don't accidentally hit the on button.
How much flour did you use?
That was 2 1/4 cups of flour.
And the recipe is on the website as well. We had it uploaded there by Philip this afternoon.
So it's 1 egg, well, 1 1/2 sticks of butter, 2/3 cup of sugar, 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, And you can also add fresh orange zest to it. And then 2 1/4 cups of flour. So what I'm gonna do at this point is just use my hand and finish mixing it.
You want to show them how it would work before you?
So at this stage, I'm gonna just use my hand and knead the dough. So if the dough seems a little dry to you, you can add 1 to 5 teaspoons of water to get the dough to the consistency we're looking for. Sam, can you give me a little water?
Sure.
I'm gonna need a little bit. Put 'em-
There you go.
And the dough's starting to come together.
How would you describe the consistency when it's done?
Like Play-Doh. Okay. So my dough is there. That's the consistency I'm looking for. So what I'm gonna do now is, now I'm gonna knead it until it becomes smooth. And it would only probably take about a couple minutes to get it to that stage. And that's how quickly it can come together. Just like that. I'm sure all of you probably made this 1,000 times, so I'm not teaching you anything new. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put it in the refrigerator for about a minimum of about 45 minutes, an hour to 24 hours. And what will happen is it'll allow all the flavors to come together. And allow the flour to rehydrate, because the sugar will take away some of the moisture from the flour. So it allows everything to come back together again. So I made some earlier. So when we roll this out, we want to roll it out to about 1/4 inch, or you can go a little bit thicker if you wish. And when we do this stage, we want to be careful how much flour we incorporate when we're rolling it out, because we'll add more flour, stiffen the dough, and we'll end up adding more flour and developing gluten as we work it more. So we got to be careful, because you don't want to develop the gluten.
What will that do to the dough if you develop gluten?
Make it hard and chewy.
So then you would get nice, light, airy Hamantaschen.
Right. So thank you. So we're just going to sprinkle a little bit of flour onto our counter and on top of the dough. Make sure you can move it freely. Get out your favorite rolling pin. So just keep making sure your dough moves freely. I always like to keep my dough squared up as I roll it out. Okay, we're almost there to the desired thickness. So you want to have your oven already preheated while you start to roll it out. 350 degrees, and usually in my convection oven, the cookies took about 16 minutes, but the recipe, it'll take about 18 to 25 in a standard household oven. So we're going to go ahead and take a 3-inch cutter. Cut out our Hamantaschen rounds. Can you see if I have an offset spatula? Okay, it's a spatula that's bent. Do I have anything in it?
No,
Okay.
those are making stuff.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set our disc off to the side. And again, as you rework this dough back into a ball to make more discs, you got to be careful how much flour you're incorporating, because you're going to make a tough cookie then, a tough Hamantaschen.
We're all tough cookies.
So I'm just going to set this aside. Get out of the baking. Oh. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So again, if I were to rework this, I would be careful how much flour I'm incorporating, because I don't want a firmer dough and a firmer cookie Hamantaschen. So you take your baking sheet, you'll use parchment paper, put it on here. As soon as we start to fill these and fold them, you'll be able to add more cookies. So take your favorite fillings. I like to use these. These are jellies that are organic, a really good flavor. Or the solo fillings that you can find at Jewel or Mariano's and those. So to these, you want to add about a teaspoon of filling. A teaspoon. I can dip my finger. Oh. So one thing you want to do too is, I like to do, is moisten the edges so I get a seal around the dough.
You can also use egg wash.
You can also use, yeah, you can also use an egg wash. But why waste an egg when you got water? Okay, I'm just going to stop there. So I'm going to take the water, just use my fingertips, go around the dough.
I want to move the thing so they can see you go.
Oh, sorry. Go around the dough. And you guys know how to form the Hamantaschen.
Maybe they don't.
You bring it up into a triangle, pinch it well so the seams stay. And this is why you can get quite a few on your baking pan.
But how far apart should they be placed?
you're gonna wanna put these, turn them the opposite way and about 1 inch away from one another. If you get them too close to one another, what's gonna happen is your cookie is gonna bake blonde. And what that is they're too close and the heat can't circulate around. The heat can't circulate around the whole cookie. So that's why you wanna give it about a good inch, inch and a half between each. This way you get nice even browning all over the whole Hamantaschen. Now, again, you can put, make these bigger. If some of you probably remember, I made really huge ones for the Purim Carnival, where they were, what, about that big around?
Yeah, they're like, yeah.
And it was fun to do those.
But Gary actually had to prop up the sides with tinfoil so that they wouldn't
Yeah.
collapse on themselves. So if you want to do that, just give Gary a call. I'll tell you how to do it.
And here's what happens if your cookie gets too dry. See how it's crumbling on me? I should add more moisture into the mix. So again, these are gonna bake for about 18 minutes. I always like to start baking off like 10 to 12 minutes. 10 to 12 minutes in the initial baking stage is gonna give you your an overall effect of what you're gonna have. So like if you were baking bread, within the first 10 to 12 minutes of the baking process, you're gonna see what you're gonna get. The rest of your baking time is just coloring the item and finishing it off. So, you know, you'll see how big your loaf of bread will be or how your cookies are gonna start out. And again, the last few minutes of baking is just going to be the coloring process of your product.
So once you're done,
Once you're done,
that's the color, right?
these are the colors. Nice browning on the bottom, all over the edges. And what I mentioned about the blonde baking, this is what happens. It's pale on the sides, and again, that's because these were too close to one another and you didn't get good heat circulation. I can't see where the camera
No,
was.
you're good. You're good.
So you couldn't see, so that's how they end up blonde. And again, you can use your own favorite fillings, whatever you wish to use. So yeah, that's, I made these at work, of course. And I multiplied the recipe a few times to get a higher volume turnout. Because we do have some residents that are Jewish, and they were excited when I told them I was going to be making the Hamantaschen. So, and that's it.
Thank you. Thank you
so
very
much,
much.
Gary.
Thank you.
I picked up some baking tips other than Hamantaschen.
I
by-
did too. I did a
Yeah.
lot of things,
Where-
a few things that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That was wonderful, Gary.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
good.
you.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Gary.
guys.
See you all at the next Maven.